You know, Stoic, most people get a cat after a breakup. And just like that, the cat is gone. You know, you give it enough love, you think it'll be around forever, but once it's had enough, it just goes away. Now I know how Stoic feels. Goes to show you can't trust anyone. And that's what this whole episode is about. All bark and no bite, or all bite and no bark, what is it? Oh, no bark and all bite. That's right, that's what it's called. Deals with the consequences of the revelation of Johann's betrayal. And Stoic, after finding out from Hiccup, is, let's say, absolutely livid. He ends up burning all the food and the medical supplies that they traded with Johann over the years, just because reasons. No plan, it's just, he touched it, it's bad, burn it. Yeah, that's sound logic right there. So the entire episode is just him with very hyper-focused need to protect the village, or just find some way to pretty much make sure that everything is safe for Berk. Along the way, 3 traders come along, and he just dismisses them instantly, because none of them have willow bark, which is apparently a main ingredient for Gothi's medicine. And so he flies off. Hiccup follows him, and it turns out to all be part of Johann's plan to pretty much take over Berk, for the Flyers to make sure to, you know, capture everyone, and the 3 traders were involved. So along the way, Hiccup calls out Stoic on his craziness, and they reconcile and they save Berk. So that's pretty much standard for this season. Going off of the last episode, In Plain Sight, it wasn't bad. It was passable. It wasn't what I did like the interaction between Hiccup and Stoic. They have had conflicting opinions of how to do things, but Hiccup has always kind of had like this, you know, calm, diplomatic, sometimes even a little timid approach to Stoic, where for Stoic it was, well, he's the chief, so like I'm the ruler, listen to me. But in this episode, Hiccup is like a little more firm. He actually calls out Stoic on his stubbornness, and I guess this is kind of a good way to kind of show where the backbone that Hiccup had in movie 2 when Stoic is confronting him about Drago came from. And I gotta say, even the cinematography is good, even for a second episode. Most of the second episodes of the season have been kind of hit or miss, passable. Night of the Hunters Part 1 being the only exception that I can name right off the top of my head. But I think that the animators, just the entire crew, was just really going all out, because there were some good cinematography, and I know we have nitpicked a bit on some of the assets or even some of the mistakes, and there were that have popped up over the series, and there have been a few in this episode, but I think they're really getting creative in trying to cover it up with some quick cuts or even some camera pans. And I'm really not just gonna focus on that because, well, I've been in their shoes. I've had to cut corners and had to find a way to cover it up. So I gotta give praise where praise is due. What? And yeah, the still characters, the motionless speed stinger stung characters, they still return, but it's mostly obvious with the Doc wide shots. First viewing, I actually thought it was just a still frame, but on the second viewing, you can actually see just a tiny little bit of motion in the water. But still, the characters don't move, which is still very funny. The entire plot is predictable to a point. You pretty much know that the whole no willow bark is a way to get the chief off the island. It might have also been a plan to get Hiccup off the island, so that there's the leader of the island is gone, and the leader of the Dragon Riders is gone. So their most powerful hitters are gone to not defend the island. That was pretty predictable. Distraction, counterattack. That seems to be the basic plan. But the B plot, where the three traders kind of do this Iron Chef cooking competition, actually turns out to work with the main plot. So instead of just two parallel plots that don't really meet, they don't meet at all, they do. Which, I gotta say, is pretty good writing. Also, the fact that Ice-Tailed Pike, which was plot relevant in last season with the return of Thor Bonecrusher, that actually comes back, and again, pretty good writing. I mean, I think first glance I did notice the fish, but because I was trying to focus on cinematography and editing and all that kind of stuff, I didn't really make that connection. And yeah, I got nothing else to say about that. What I I'm kind of split on is Gobber's peg blade, but it's in comparison to like the sheer how does that happen kind of feeling, it's not as bad as, say, Portrait of Hiccup as a Buff Man, where a mace unhooks from an ice wall, swings down, and then retracts back up, being locked in place on an ice wall. Yeah, not as bad as that. And at least they kind of cover it up, saying Hiccup made it for me my last birthday, and I'm like, okay, yeah, shouldn't make a big deal about that. Even the animation on, I guess, the Burning Islands, I gotta say, those smoke plumes actually look familiar. I'm kind of wondering if they got them from Action VFX, which, that's a website, I've actually used a few of their assets, so it's kind of nice to know they're getting some recognition. So, as I've mentioned, they are getting, really going all out with their camera work. My favorite shot overall, the one that actually stood out to me, aside from the medium shot where Stoic and Hiccup are like smack dab in the center of the frame when they're now arguing with each other, was the overhead shot of the burning food. And that it does have some meaning, this is pretty much Stoic's way of cutting all ties with Johann, or to symbolize his burning rage at the betrayal. And the overhead shot, it kind of just sells it like almost like the gods are looking down on this. And so that puts us in that position. So we can now see the whole scope of his anger. And that's pretty much all that I have. This was a pretty passable episode, as I have said before. And also a good character developing story is for Hiccup, and especially for Stoic. And honestly, yeah, I got nothing else to say about this. So, guess I'm gonna try to find another cat, or maybe a dog. Yeah, they're loyal. They'll never betray you. So, until then, I'll see you next time.